Thatch in a no-till field can be a problem for establishing native grasses. Number one, sometimes it's too thick to cut through and get proper seed soil contact, seed placement. Number two, it can inhibit the germinating seedlings. And so we want to make sure that we don't have excessive thatch on the field. That can be handled by earlier grazing, mowing and baling the material, perhaps even prescribed fire. The amount of thatch that's on this field that you see down here is not really a concern. This isn't what I would call a heavy thatch, and so we're okay to work our no-till drill through it. If you look over here where the drill is passed, you can see exactly what I'm talking about. Right here in this particular furrow, we've done a very good job with this drill, with its cutting disc or trash plow, of cleaning up that thatch, and you can see a nice open furrow there where we're able to get the seed directly in contact with the mineral soil. So this amount of thatch, not a problem. This looks real good here, and actually this will help end up insulating the soil and retaining some moisture. One important thing we want to do when we're no-till drilling native grasses is we want to make sure the drill is set up properly. In other words, we want to make sure we're getting through whatever thatch is there, and we're getting enough penetration into the soil for good seed placement. We don't want to be too deep, we don't want to be too shallow. We're looking at about 1/8 to 1/4 inch depth. So we have just started in this field, and we're going to adjust the depth on this drill to make sure we get proper seed placement. But a couple things I want you to see here. In this particular drill row, you can see where the seed has been falling, and we can see some seed up on the surface of the ground. And with native grasses, we're not too concerned about that. In fact, we want to see a little bit of seed on the surface of the ground, because that sort of reinforces to us that we're planting shallow. Right here we've got our double disc opener, and in between it, directly in between it, is our furrow. And in that furrow we can see that right now we are really only about 1/4 inch deep, and I'm looking at seed down in there. And of course this packer wheel behind it is going to help bury that seed just a little bit. But this is probably about right what we're looking for this native grass seed. Again, it's a small seed and we don't need it very far into the ground. If it's a small seed too deep in the ground, it doesn't have the energy reserves to push up through all that soil when it germinates. So again, we're looking for very shallow seed placement, about 1/8 to 1/4 inch. Some people ask me, why not just sow it? And part of the answer is that yes, you can sow this seed, but the advantage of using the drill is you get a little more consistent seed soil placement. That seed is down into a little bit of dirt and has good contact with that soil and can preserve some moisture. If we sow, we generally want to cover it somehow with a cultipacker or very light disking perhaps. But I prefer to use a drill because again, more consistent seed soil contact. You can see the seed along that drill row right there that's on the surface, and that's a good thing because it tells us we're seeding shallow. But you also see where just a little further along there the seed starts to disappear, which means it's underground. And if we kind of work into that soil, there's two things I want you to notice. One of them, there's a seed we just uncovered, and if we're lucky enough, we'll uncover a few more under here. But you see how fine textured that soil is, and the great thing about that is, even though it's a little on the dry side, there's a couple more seeds that just came up, is that really fine textured soil, almost like talcum powder, guarantees us that we have just exceptional seed soil contact. And then the final thing I'll point out where Norman has uncovered some of that seed is how shallow it is that he's bringing it up. It's about 1/4 inch deep. I don't think it's any deeper than that. And so we got shallow seeding, and we got a really fine soil that's packed in snug around it with a lot of down pressure on the packer wheels that ensures we got just exceptional seed soil contact. And when it comes to planting native grass seed, that's the name of the game. What I want to show you here, this native grass seed tends to be chaffy and not as clean as some of the other kinds of pasture seed that we're used to planting. And so sometimes we have to be careful in terms of what we put this through in type of drill. This particular drill here is a no-till drill. It happens to be a true axe drill, but a lot of the features on it are going to be somewhat similar among drills. A couple things I want to show you. First of all, this box right here is what we call a chaffy seed or native seed box. And the important thing I want you to see here is these agitator wheels. We've talked about how fluffy that seed is, and so it can be difficult to pass through a conventional drill sometimes, but therefore we use this box because we've got these agitators that can keep that seed flowing. The good news is, even though this seed is somewhat chaffy, we can actually run it through this back box right here. And this is just a conventional box. This is what we plant wheat, soybeans, tall fescue, orchard grass with. It still has agitators, but you can see how less aggressive they are.